There we go. And we are recording. This is live. Welcome, welcome everyone. My name is Donny Lobree, and I am joined by my beloved husband,
Kirk
Prine, and we are here again with another episode of Queer Tribe Conversations, where we, about every month, we have a conversation with a queer luminary thought leader and find out his thoughts about kind of where we are and where we're going. And today we are delighted to have with us Roy Grant, who hails from Milwaukee. And so I'll tell you a little bit about Roy. Roy Grant is a certified life coach, a registered nurse, and a Reiki master and a self-help author. As a result of sexual abuse and intense bullying for being gay as a child, Roy turned towards self-help books and meditation at a young age, and soon began writing his own with a desire to help others transform their pain. He's been facilitating support groups for over 6 years and teaching meditation for over 10. He facilitates the meetup groups, the Thoughtful Gay Man Chicago, Thoughtful Gay Man Milwaukee, Heads Up You're Precious out of Chicago, Heads Up You're Precious out of San Francisco, and S.H.I.N.E out of Tokyo, all centered around exploring the depths of identity, healing the past, and stepping into our highest potential. Ray also founded Turnsol Studios, an independent art creation studio through which he writes young adult and children's books, as well as meditations for children, all based on the themes of self-empowerment and respect for nature, with the mission to turn children back to their souls rather than to their screens, nourish them with messages essential for self-esteem, and remind them of the superpower of their own imagination. Roy's personal philosophy is that we all have inherent worth, as there is no greater indication of worth than existence. The supreme sacredness of existence indicates that we all have royal blood. The universe is our kingdom. Our power to create is our scepter, and our consciousness is our crown. He also believes that paradise is now, meaning that joy is available to us in any moment, regardless of our circumstances, through the powers of presence, gratitude, honoring nature, and honoring self. Roy speaks French and Japanese, as well as a little Chinese, Italian, and Icelandic. And though he loves to travel, he's a homebody at heart, preferring peaceful nights by the fire in the company of his 2 dogs. So, wow. So welcome, Roy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And Roy told us that the mailman may come by and that his dogs will get excited. So we may get to meet the doggies. We'll just see.
Yeah, apologies ahead of time.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Apologies. Free expression is welcome. So, yeah. Well, Roy, you know, there's so much to respond to just even in your bio, and it tells us a lot about the journey. But if you can fill in the blanks for us and tell us some stories about your spiritual journey, your awakening, stories that inform you in some of the questions that we're going to ask you later. But tell us about your spiritual journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I referenced in the bio, you know, the sexual abuse as a young child was what absolutely, you know, caused me to plummet into self-exploration and reflection, and just became my way of life because it really ate away at my identity, my sexuality, my concept of belonging in the world, relating to other people. There's a lot to unpack with that. So thank goodness I had and have supportive parents that encouraged me to do my healing. And my mom is the one that actually gave me some self-help books that just really opened my mind towards healing and the power of positive thinking, and actually our own ability to create change in our life. I mean, that was such an awe-inspiring moment when I realized, wait, I can have a different life. I can heal something and become stronger. And that just became so exciting to me, you know, and so I just dove into that. And the bullying was a large piece as well. It really changed how I viewed myself and masculinity and other male figures in my life, because the jocks at school were kind of my primary bullies. And it really took a lot of self-reliance in order to not linger in a depressive state and understand what my true happiness was going to be in that. And then, of course, wanting to share that with others. So also why I wanted to become a nurse and a life coach and try to help people heal. Because when you go through it yourself, I think that empathy really gives you something to assist others.
So your awakening, in part, you're kind of attributing to the wound of abuse, but discovering then that you can change the story. That you're not defined by the abuse, you can make the abuse actually your gift. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. That's something I talk about in my book, Paradise Is Now, as well as the power of pain and how it is a catalyst for growth and evolution. If you choose to see it that way and work with it, as opposed to resisting it and reacting to it. I think if we could all have a greater capacity for self-reflection, that would heal most of the problems in the world. Our tendency is to react to our pain, either by lingering in our victimhood or lashing out in anger, or other abusive behaviors towards ourselves and others. But if we reflect and just simply ask ourselves, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Where does this come from? What is the potential root of this feeling? And then if it's something that I'd like to change, how can I change it at the root? So yes, the power of pain is to turn us towards our better self, catalyst.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there more stories you'd like to share with us in kind of your awakening to? So you got all this self-help information that got you introspective and kind of taking your power back from victim to what I call survivor and thriver. But tell us a little bit more about your journey as a gay man and how that um, fits into the picture.
Yeah. So I guess another really big piece that I would bring up as far as the spiritual awakening and tying into identifying as gay is my relationships with other men, intimate relationships. And just a year ago, I separated from my partner of 11 years. And I had to come to terms with accepting that he was a sex addict and addicted to pornography. So I think it was a big awakening for me when you start seeing your old trauma reflecting in your current relationships. It's really hard to look at sometimes. And I think that that's a common thing that gay men tend to deal with, is this kind of hypersexuality, addictive behaviors, kind of loose representations of relationships, because maybe we don't have that initial support or role models or foundation to build to understand what a healthy relationship can be between two men. I think that plays out all the time in the gay world. And so it's been a lot of dissecting those aspects for me. And one of the most harmful things in that relationship was that my partner at the time was saying, well, it's because of your trauma that you're thinking my behavior is abnormal. And so it actually made me feel even more guilt about my own past, and was in perfect alignment with what the bullies told me too, that I was different and I wasn't normal and that I deserved to be made fun of. So it was kind of all compounding. And I think a lot of gay men or queer people in general, minorities in general, we all know what that feels like, to feel like an other and that there's something wrong with us. So that again can be a catalyst to make us look at, well, what do I want? Who am I? What do I want to be? And give ourselves permission to be that and to pursue that without the permission of others, especially mainstream society or even your most intimate relationships. I think I'll just say one more thing on that. I think relationships are the media of emotional evolution, and they can either keep you lingering in your pain and what you attract to trigger your own wounds, or they can teach you who you are and how to heal, what needs healing, because they're basically a mirror, internal self.
Yeah, I feel free to keep interjecting stories as they go along, but that was kind of a great segue to get to, we call these calls queer tribe conversations, but, are we a queer tribe? And it sounds like, your last line of building relationships, building community in my mind, is how we really discover ourselves more fully. So tell me, do you see us as queer people, as LGBTQ people, as a tribe, or for men as a tribe? Talk about being tribe and how that resonates with you as it does.
Yeah, I really love that question. I've thought about this a lot in my own life and the clients that I work with and in the groups that I facilitate as well. It's a big question because we hear talk about the LGBTQ community, and unfortunately, a lot of people feel it is kind of a myth, and a lot of people are aching for that connection and that love and that unconditional love in particular, and maybe they aren't finding it. And I think, but to answer your question, to cut to the point, I truly do believe that we are a tribe, and it's a matter of celebrating that and appreciating that. I think that there's a lot of suffering in that tribe because there's so much criticism, so much wanting and needing to be loved, so much need for validation that we're enough. And so we're not getting that, and I'm speaking very broadly here, but we're not getting that from mainstream society, right? And so we would expect that we have this family that we can turn to where we will be instantly unconditionally loved and understood, and we can be exactly who we are with these other people because we share that common ground. And yet we find criticism sometimes even more so intensified in that tribe with one another. There's ageism on both sides, old to young, young to old. And I think these are really, and there's a lot of loneliness too, and a lot of loss of identity because we want to be loved so badly, even within our own tribe, that we're willing to sacrifice pieces of ourselves just to feel loved and accepted. But if we look in the right places, for instance, you're probably going to find intense criticism and ageism in a bar setting, perhaps. But if you seek out things like this beautiful example of what is possible for us to connect with like-minded people, um, or that's the reason why I started my support group, is because in Milwaukee there didn't exist such a thing for gay men to get together and talk about deeper things and unpack the self and our trauma and to heal. But those things do exist out there, and I think it's we. I would love to say that we are all one another's people, but even within that truth, we're going to have to find our people within that umbrella as well, and know that we're not alone, and it's worth seeking those people out. One more thought on that is, I think at a certain point in the gay experience or queer experience, and I keep saying gay because I identify as a gay male, and so that's what's most understood or relevant to me. But as a minority in general, you do have to have that period in your life where you are exploring that aspect of your identity to the fullest, and you are meeting other people like you to get that support and to understand that you're not alone and to explore it fully. But at another stage in your life, I think it's important to also think about the whole of your identity and to know that that is such a small fraction of your identity, and to not associate so much weight with orientation and really any level of identity in that aspect. However, I think there is such a magic to being queer that I am so grateful that I get to be that in this lifetime, and to share that with those that I connect with in that tribe. Because you look at the creativity, the artists, and the free thinking, the sense of humor. I mean, everybody on the planet has those things, but to me, I take a little extra pride in our tribe, knowing that there's just something really special about it, and something that people that are maybe not in this tribe, not to exclude them, but you have to celebrate the fact that we have a very unique experience, different to other people. And I think there's a lot of fun in that and a lot to be grateful for, because I know when I do meet like-minded people, it's such a relief to have that instant connection and sense of understanding, that I can be fully myself, that I don't get to feel 100% of the time with others in my life. So
Mhm. Wow, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, and I love the fact that, I think about, those who sow in tears, so reap in joy, that
Bunny,
life.
Bunny, lean in so we can hear. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. So I'm moved by hearing your stories, and it just kind of brought the little Hebrew quote in my mind: "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." So, all of us who have felt like we don't belong or don't fit, or have been bullied and internalized that, and been wounded by others' opinions of us, reversing that around is the recovery, is the joy. And I see that you fully embody that, and that's really exciting. In fact, it kind of leads me into our, our big question. If we're a tribe or a movement, what is it that you see for us? I mean, in these precarious times that we're in, of COVID and racial unrest, and with the new elected president-elect, hopefully ushering in a more civil tone. But how do you see us as queer people, as gay men? What are our roles in the future? What's your vision for us for the future? So just kind of take time pondering that and letting us hear what your heart speaks.
Thank you. I'm a firm believer that we're here for a reason. Life has meaning. Aspects of our life experiences, the majority of them, I believe, we've decided to embark upon before being incarnated on Earth. And I believe that queer people, along with other minorities, are teachers, and we need to accept and relish that role that we have. So we often shrink down because we come into this world feeling completely comfortable with who we are, and then we typically get some sort of feeling that, oh, I'm different, and that light kind of dims a little bit, or to an extreme extent, and we even hide it, and have to deal with that for our entire life. But if we can remember, this is a message that I would really love everyone to sink in, is if we can remember that we are teachers, and the reason it's not that we have to change for other people, but in fact we are bringing a message that they need to hear to help them change. And so we are in just being authentic, we are being a teacher. And that's why it's so important to be authentic and 100% who you are, as long as you feel, physically safe to do that. Sometimes there are not those situations where you can be 100% authentic at this point, unfortunately. But overall, if we can remember that is our role. That is going now and going into the future. We are stirring the waters to get people to open their hearts and become more empathetic. We have to expose ourselves to the world so that people aren't so afraid of it and they know that it's normal. Just think of the things that you are uncomfortable with because you're not familiar with them. I mean, it's the same for everyone. So we have such a powerful and important role as helping the world evolve emotionally. And it's as simple as being authentic, and not hiding that. We need to expose others to our light. And we see that now. We see that people are raising the level of their consciousness, and people are open to understanding or accept, even if they don't quite understand. And that's because we are visible and we are authentic, and how quickly that can change. The power of truth, power of a voice. And I think when you are feeling lonely, when you are feeling that you don't belong, or you don't feel like you can be authentic, you have to remember that you're a teacher, and it's going to be hard. We signed up for it, and it's going to be hard to be that minority. But that's your role.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm reminded. It's so, certainly there's a lot of healing that needs to be taking place in us individually and as a tribe, and then as our country and all the many tribes. And I love what you just said. Just kind of feeding some more thought to that. Among indigenous people, how each one of us in the tribe has a gift. That gift is essential for the tribe to work and to function and to flourish. And then among tribes, each tribe has their gifts that they bring to all the tribes. So it's my belief and understanding that we as queer people bring part of what's needed to bring healing to the whole country and to the world, as well as all other tribes need to recognize and wake up to what their gifts are to bring healing for the world as well. Do you see us in one of our calls we did with a brother, he talked about us as bridge builders. Um, and I'm wondering, do you see us as bridge builders in this time of change, and shift of direction? So say more.
Yeah, I mean, I love that metaphor. Um, I think the most important aspect of being a bridge builder, though, is that you don't draw a hard line yourself in the lessons that you're trying to teach. Because I think, uh, especially recently, it's been really easy to say it's them against us, and they should be well beyond where they are now in their thinking and things like that. So I think in bridge building you have to, that's also the power of authenticity, is just being present is sometimes enough to get people to open up just slightly. And we know that these changes can take lifetimes. But I also want to say, in regards to the politics, it's you can get caught up in the horrors of thinking, oh my God, there are people that really think like this. There's this kind of racism and aggression and out there, and it can be really disheartening. But it's almost like we're being, and I'm trying to be sensitive in saying this because obviously there's been a lot of pain lately, but I'm speaking from a bird's eye view kind of spiritual perspective that, it seems like a rock has been lifted, and we're seeing kind of all the bugs, all the pain and all the hurt that exists in the country. And it's almost a gift to let those things come into the light so that we know what we need to feel, as opposed to just keeping them under that rock, and we didn't know and just took it for granted, and that was just going to keep on living that way. It's almost like having some kind of internal bleed. Would you rather know that you have it and then take the steps towards healing, or just keep bleeding? So I think we can also look at it through that positive lens, even though it is really disheartening. But then again, that's why we're here. We're here to go through difficult emotional experiences and to evolve as souls. So it's all part of the work too that kind of helps us to remember we're here for a reason. We are teachers, and we're also learning and healing ourselves. That's why we're here. I mean, I can't speak to know why why all of that, but we can at least say we know that. And yeah, in the bridge building too, my neighbor is, let's just say, she's got Trump signs in her yard, quite a few of them, and it's been really hard not wanting to go and rip out those signs from the yard while all of this is going on. You feel that in yourself. But you know what? The best thing that has worked is just to be kind to my neighbors, and I truly know that is changing how they perceive gay people and just other people who might share different views. In the smallest of ways, it all matters, as opposed to getting into a fist fight.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I love that you keep calling us back to seeing ourselves as teachers. So as we learn and do our work, then we can teach from what we're learning and doing our work about. And kindness, what an antidote kindness is, and listening, um, to start building some of those bridges. So thank you for embodying that. Are there any other kind of visions you have for us, as queer folk in the future, or roles that you see evolving, contributions that you feel like we're on a trajectory for, or we have a propensity for? If there's anything further you want to say about that?
I think our contributions have been immense and some of the most powerful contributions to the planet already since way back when in history. We have always been a creative, intelligent, supportive, and loving I. And I think the difference is just that society is allowing us to be who we are more and more with every second of every day, and only God could perceive what that's going to allow for us and for the generations that are growing up that don't have to deal with the bullies that I had to deal with, or the shame that many of us have had to deal with. Imagine what being born into a world of that nature is like, where you don't even have to get over those initial hurdles, and you don't have those qualms about wanting to hold another person's hand that's of the same sex. I think I'm just taking it in, the excitement right now, and that the excitement of what those children are going to be allowed, give themselves permission to do. That's the big thing, because having the world give you permission to do it is huge. Our roles, I think, are just going to continue to be teachers, but also love. I know it's already happening. We're to be more visible role models for others in the world that are like us, so that we're giving them strength to rise and step into their full potential and power. I think that's going to be more and more,
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm just struck by as my belief in what we do in our work in Flesh and Spirit. It's always kind of, what's coming up now for healing, so that our gifts can be transmitted first and foremost to ourselves, but then to the larger world. And just having a vision for how we as gay queer people, I remember one of our callers talked about, there are those of us who feel the calling to serve, and there's a lot of literature about us as queer folk, even surviving and thriving during the AIDS epidemic, let's say, that people who tended to live longer and better, one of the components was that they saw themselves active agents of change, and saw themselves as helping to bring to usher in something new into the world. So I think there's a lot of evidence for what you're saying, and I love that. So we're going to open up the lines to whoever's on the call, or let them open up their lines individually and ask you any kind of questions that have been stirred by this conversation, or comments that they have for you. So if somebody wants to, and Donny, if you can be the point person, because I'm not seeing people, but to welcome anybody in. So if anybody has any questions or comments for Roy so far, feel free to raise your hand, and Donny will let you in.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you're saying about our role in the culture as bridge builders, as walkers between the worlds, and the ones that can bring a special understanding. One of the things that I struggle with is that, as somebody who's relatively woke in a world that's not necessarily, I understand that role. I understand that I decided to accept that role, but it's like, as queer people, we're already perpetually a minority, and then the the teachers are a minority within that minority. And I'm finding that usually the people that are enlightened enough to be doing that kind of teaching are so busy. How do we find our tribe when we just need to talk to somebody that we don't have to teach before the conversation, somebody that we can talk to about the issues? How do you avoid just the loneliness of that role?
Yeah, I think it can be a really lonely role. And it is important to have that support group, you know, as a teacher or as a leader, you do have to have that support for yourself as well. And that's why it is so important to gather that group of people. What I can say is that the more that you open up to and listen to what matters to you, that is going to lead you to those people that are going to be your support group. Every little thing that I ever listened to that felt from a higher place has led me to the greatest relationships and aspects of my life. But I would keep pulling yourself as far as the loneliness and the difficulty of that burden that it is. Sometimes I would keep pulling yourself out to look from above and remember the greater whole of things. Because when you're in your loneliness, you're very tight in the human experience and how you relate to the world and to others and the needing validation. But if you take yourself out as often as you can and see, oh yes, I'm here for a reason, life has meaning, me just being me is enough. It's not always even a conversation like you mentioned, you know, just being you and exposing and shifting that energy out into the world is enough. And you are enough. It doesn't have to be some great feat of, you know, activism or changing someone's mind, because everyone's going to be at their own process, and some people are going to be at a molasses level, and you don't want to be bogged down by that and think that you have to make this huge difference, because you already are in just being a loving person beneath being a queer person, you know. So I think that would be my main advice, is keep reminding yourself that you're not really alone. That's an illusion in itself, you know. Know that there are others like you out there, and there are ways to connect with them. The more you connect with your higher calling, the more you're going to be naturally attracted to them, vice versa. And know that it's okay to nourish yourself and take vacation from the work, so to speak, now and then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you get your question answered?
Yes. Although I have those days when you know, I think about being over in Tirnanog, planning out this lifetime, and I just keep hearing my mother's voice telling me I bit off more than I can chew.
Mm.
So she was saying that all the time. It's like, what was I thinking? You know?
Yeah.
That's right. That shows the ambition of your soul and your heart, and that's something to be proud of. It really is. You're excited to be here. Yeah, and that's good. That's what we need. We should be biting off more than we can chew.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That's
A good reframe. Yes.
next time I hear my mother's voice, I'll just say that back. It's like, I should be doing that. Yes, it's all in my imagination, but that's where everything starts. Wow. I love having the answers back to the voices in my head.
That's what healing is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else before we close? You have a question or comment for Roy about all the stuff that he's been sharing?
Yeah, if I may.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes. Yeah, good.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, Kirk and Roy. Wonderful to hear you speak today and your perspectives. And I so appreciate how you were, defining one of the beauties and opportunities that we have as queer people, gay people, of that as being teachers, a teacher, but how you also mentioned that we are at once a teacher and a student, and it truly is a symbiotic relationship, and it's both a symbiotic relationship within and a symbiotic relationship, you know, an internal and external relationship that has to manifest itself or can manifest itself internally and externally. And to that point of the external manifestation of our ability to be both a teacher and a student, like you with your neighbor, right? You spoke about how you saw those signs of Trump support, and one possible action would be to walk over and rip them off and get into a fight, either verbal or physical. And another option, which is what you took, is to engage with compassion and understanding, or try to gain understanding. Could you talk a little bit more about whether in that particular experience or in general, how do you go about that external manifestation of being a teacher and a student? How do you engage without affecting your own growth and where you are, the safety and emotional growth that you've gained, but also without just saying, well, you know what, I'm not gonna listen to them. I'm not gonna see them because they're not good for me. Could you just talk a little bit about how you engage and how we can engage with the other, if in fact that term is even a good term to use?
Yeah, I mean, both you and Michael have beautiful questions. Thank you. It is a very delicate balance, because you do want to make that impact as a teacher, and yet you have to acknowledge your own baggage that is kind of dropping some ink into the purity of being that teacher in itself, because you're also learning. So I would say the number one thing is to be self-reflective, like I mentioned, and to know whether your behavior is some form of reaction or if it's actually a conscious choice. That's a really big distinction in how we compose ourselves and interact with others in the world. And then, of course, if you do identify it as a reaction that isn't quite a conscious choice, and it's more of an impulse, then you can dig deeper and ask yourself, well, why am I reacting so strongly this way? Where is that coming from? And that will lead you on the path to healing. Maybe even just asking the question, because you most likely won't get the answer immediately sometimes. But it's really interesting, because I think about that myself. When am I being too kind, and maybe when do I need to set a boundary? Maybe when do I need to speak up, and maybe not be so nice? It's a really important question to ask. So I think it depends on each situation, because boundaries are really important, and using your voice is really important. But number one, if you know where your intention is coming from, you don't have an attachment to the outcome, for instance, wanting to change another person's mind or wanting to get their validation so that you feel better about yourself. There are times when you have to let go. It's a beautiful thing. Like if you have any kind of relationship, intimate friendship or neighbor, whatever, and there's something that you don't care for in their behavior or how your interaction unfolds, then you can always ask them, you can always tell them how you're feeling and ask them if they'd be willing to do this or that differently. And then if they can meet you at that level, then great. But if they're not able to, then you have to be okay with letting that go. I went for 11 years with fighting with my ex, as I mentioned, about who's right, who's wrong. You know, I'm feeling this way, he's feeling that way, and in the end, I had to accept that the way I wanted him to be was not who he is or who he was going to be. So I think stepping out of the way of that fight, but also you can say that you expressed yourself, your point of view, how you were feeling. And I know that even our fighting is going to make an evolutionary impact on him, just as he did for me. And even though we're parting ways and we did not come to a resolution where we were both happy, and the same goes for the neighbor situation or anyone else in your life. It's not being attached to an outcome, making sure you're not reacting from pain, and being conscious about your choices and your intentions.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank
I
you.
I have a teacher question. If nobody else has a burning thing, I don't want to monopolize.
Do it just for 1 minute because we are going to have to wrap up. But yes, go for it.
Um, I know as a teacher, you learn from your own experience. You use your own experience. You heal by your own healing. When it's something really intense like childhood sexual abuse, my issue, I have an entire book that I wrote of poetry during my healing process, and it's very intense. And I've never tried to get it published because there's so many people involved in the family dynamics and things that are addressed that have not come to terms with it themselves. How do you balance using your own experience and your own pain with the fact that you may be triggering other people if they ever read it, that you know, it is healing for people, but it also can be triggering for some of the people that have maybe not come to terms and would understand that situation, my siblings, you know, specifically. So I've never gotten it published because I'm worried about that.
Yeah, I will go back to the beginning. Would you, or you know, what I mentioned about the politics, would you rather keep those things under the rock, or would you rather see what's there? And you know, are you protecting others from their own healing? Even, I mean, triggering the pain, we talked about pain, and triggering is the catalyst for healing. And why should you have to hold back your healing experience because other people aren't ready to heal? If you're ready, that's all that matters. And I understand your consideration, and that's good to be reflective in that regard. But that would be my short, quick answer. Is don't hold back for other people that aren't ready. It's the same in being part of this tribe. You cannot hold back just because others in the world aren't ready for you.
I like that, holding people back from their own healing. That's ouch.
Beautiful.
Yeah, gotta look at it. If they have a problem with it, then that's a sign that something needs, that they probably need to look at it.
As we have just a minute, I just wanted to point out that in the chat box, I've copied and pasted your websites. So those of you there, take this next minute to copy and paste there from the chat area, all of Roy's websites.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And so in closing, so Donny did that so that people can make contact with you and resource you, but is there anything that you would like to plug as we close up this call, Roy, for us to be invited into?
Thank you, yes. If you go to my website, roygrantlifecoach.com, there you will find a link to my book on Amazon. It's called Paradise Is Now. And it covers a lot of what we talked about as far as the power of pain. And also on my website, you'll find all the links to all the support groups that are all being done via Zoom at this point. So anyone from anywhere can join them. So it would be great to see your faces again there if you'd like to join us in some of that. Yeah, so all the main links are there on my website, roygrantLifeCoach.com. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, Roy, thank you so much for
Thank you, Roy.
sharing your wisdom, and for all of you who jumped in on the call and those who will be watching it virtually at a later date. So Donny and I want to thank you all, remind you that Flesh and Spirit, it's www.fleshandspirit.org, is our page that is filled with upcoming events. Most of which are virtual, but we're hoping by next year maybe we'll have some in-person things again. So thank you, Roy. Anything in closing, Roy, as your juicy note? I'm thinking of one of the gems that you left me with today was, me just being me is enough. But is there anything else in closing that you want to say?
I'll just repeat the one belief that to me will heal all of your problems if you believe that you have inherent worth. That it is, as you said, you are enough simply because you exist, that crown of your consciousness. There is no bigger biggie than that. So take that in every moment that you can of your own life. Remember how amazing that miracle is that you exist. Accept that power of beauty.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Roy, so much for being with us today. And thank all of you who have come to listen, and all of you who will listen to this recording. We'll have this out in probably a day or two. So I don't believe we have anyone scheduled for another time, but we usually do one of these about every month, or maybe 5 weeks or so. So we'll have somebody, I'm sure, very interesting to talk to as well. And please join us for that next call. If you're on our email list, you will get a notification about that.
And there is a whole archive of years of people doing these calls that are just a treasure trove. So feel free to access those.
Yes, we have an archive of all the conversations, and they're all extremely interesting. You'll be busy for hours, and they're all, of course, free of charge. Just go ahead and enjoy it.
Great.
Donny and Donald, thank you for bringing us together like that.
Thank you.
Unique and wonderful.
Always a pleasure to be with all of you, beloveds.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. And namaste to you all.
Namaste.
Thank you, Roy.
Bye-bye.
You do.